Namaste everyone. Thank you for joining in this video. So in this video, I'm going to talk a bit about the Darakaraka. And Darakaraka is one of the 8 Charakarakas of Jaimini. Okay, it's a misconception to assume that Charakarakas have been talked about only by Jaimini. In fact, Parashara also speaks about, the 8 Charakarakas. And there is also confusion regarding how many Charakarakas are there in Vedic astrology. And I had made a video on, on dispelling that myth that there are 7 Charakarakas, whereas in reality, Parashara actually speaks about 8 Charakarakas. Okay, so that video is somewhere on YouTube. Please go and watch it if you haven't done that already. Okay, but then let's speak about Darakaraka. And Darakaraka is a planet which has the lowest degree in your birth chart. Okay, and in the Gemini system, okay, even in Parashara, each planet from Sun to Rahu, they represent the various people in your life. Okay, and the Darakaraka is a significant indicator of the nature, personality, as well as the characteristics of the spouse, whether it is the husband or the wife. Okay, and as I said, Darakaraka has the energy of the 7th house. It is the lowest degree planet in the birth chart. And when you reflect, if you don't know how to calculate the Darakaraka, just look at your birth chart using the astrology app and see, the planet that has the lowest degree number assigned to it. Okay, and that planet becomes your Darakaraka. Okay, and the house and the sign of your Darakaraka indicates a lot about the kind of person you're going to marry, the nature of your spouse, as well as, the behavior and the characteristics of the spouse and the contribution of the spouse in your life, as well as the contribution of yours in the life of your spouse. Okay, and we know that in the birth chart, the natural significator of a husband and wife are represented by Jupiter and Venus. Okay, so every husband, every female wants the qualities of Jupiter in the husband, and every male wants the qualities of Venus in his wife. But then the Darakaraka is going to show the more individualistic qualities that you seek. Okay, and it's also going to show you the unique nature of your, of your husband, of your life partner, of your spouse. Okay, and remember, Darakaraka is much more than just representing the characteristics or attributes of the spouse. It has other influences on you. This planet will influence your preferences, your attitudes, your capabilities, your inclinations, and your judgments. Okay, and through such influence in the chart, the planet which becomes your Darakaraka can moderate, can modify and even enhance you after marriage. Okay, and you are more likely to gravitate to the people ruled or represented by this planet as indicated in your horoscope. Okay, so as I said, the Darakaraka can be easily identified since it has the lowest degree of movement in any sign in any house, which manifest the overall quality of your spouse. Okay, so there is another question that needs to be addressed by speaking about the Darakaraka. Is the Darakaraka and the 7th lord the same? Well, it's a yes and a no. Okay, because the 7th house lord denotes the fulfillment of marriage, but it does not reflect upon the characteristics of the spouse. So for example, if the 7th lord is well placed and it has a beneficial aspect of any other planet like Jupiter or Venus or even Sun or Moon, then you can be assured to lead a happy married life. Okay, the position of the 7th lord will tell us how your spouse would behave, after the marriage, or under what circumstances you will meet your spouse. Okay, so obviously I've been doing detailed videos on the 7th lord and the 7th house. Yes, we have covered almost 2 weeks on the same topic. Okay, so the planet which is placed in the 7th house in the D1 chart, or the planet that aspects the 7th house, will signify or influence the overall appearance of the spouse. Okay, Darakaraka, on the other hand, will show you the nature and characteristics and features of your spouse. Okay, if the Darakaraka is in a friendly sign, and it is a friendly planet to the Atma Karaka, then you will have a harmonious relationship with your spouse and vice versa. Okay. And the sign where the Darakaraka planet is placed will show the kind of nature that your spouse possesses. Okay. And the house and the placement of the Darakaraka will confirm what interests your spouse has, like hobbies, in the field of career and so on. Okay. So it's important that the Darakaraka should be placed in good dignity, with strength, and without any kind of malefic affliction, either in the D1 or the D9 chart. Okay. And if that happens, what it means is the spouse will be well settled and successful in life. Okay. And the placement of Darakaraka in your D9 chart is very, very important, because that will show, or that will denote, how your spouse's life will be after marriage. Okay. So also, if you go further deep into this topic, you will see that the Darakaraka becomes a very important or very prominent planet in your spouse's chart. Okay. For example, say my Darakaraka is Jupiter, and Jupiter becomes a very important planet for my spouse because she is Scorpio ascendant, and Jupiter becomes a very important planet for Mars ascendants, right? And as I have been saying, Darakaraka in different houses will alter or modify the effect and overall good or bad result in your life after marriage, along with the 7th house lord, which we'll be discussing later on. Okay. So in today's video, we will be also looking at the effects of the various planets, as Darakaraka. As I said, from the sun to Rahu, any planet can become the Darakaraka. Okay. And that is the lowest degree planet. Okay. So depending on that planet, the Darakaraka, depending on the placement, depending upon the, the malefic and benefic influences on that planet, Darakaraka is very, very interesting. Okay. The sign placement of the Darakaraka will imply the qualities that your spouse has. Okay. The house placement of Darakaraka would indicate the personality, the personality of the spouse, what type of influences your personality, the personality of your spouse has. Okay. What kind of lessons you need to learn for your spouse. The malefic aspects on the Darakaraka will indicate the negative qualities, it will show the level of suffering. And the harmonious aspects of the Darakaraka will show the, the good qualities of the spouse. Okay. So what if the sun is the Darakaraka? Okay. So usually it gives a dedicated spouse with a good status. Okay. But then the spouse will be very demanding of attention, but although the spouse will be, will be very attention seeking, the spouse will be very loyal, will be very trustworthy. Okay. And if the sun receives, harmonious aspects from other planets, it will bring forth the good qualities of the spouse. And if it receives malefic aspects, like, for example, from Sun or from Saturn, from Mars or from Saturn, then the negative qualities would be more prominent. For example, if Mars is aspecting this Darakaraka Sun, then the spouse will be argumentative, competitive or dominant by nature. Okay, will have a dynamic personality, will have ego issues. And the spouse will want you to follow their direction, will be dominant, will be very bossy in the relationship. Okay. And if this Darakaraka Sun is placed in the 1st house or the 10th house, where the Sun actually receives Digbala, then the spouse would actually want to shine and achieve status after marriage. And they would always, prefer to be independent and have their own business. Okay, have their own thing to do rather than being in a job. If I look at the physical traits of a person having Sun as Darakaraka, then such a person would be, the spouse would be tall, have a fair complexion, will have a medium skin tone, amber colored eyes, brown hair, or even hair that is wild, curly, or wavy. Okay. What if the moon becomes the Darakaraka? In that case, the person, whether it's a husband or whether it's a male or a female, would have a very feminine way of approaching things. Okay. If it's a female, the spouse, if you're a man, then you'd have a very curvy wife. I'm sorry if that word offends you. If you're a male, then you could have a very chubby, chubby husband. If you're a female, then you could have a very chubby husband. If you have moon as the Atmakaraka, as the Darakaraka. And usually these people, the spouse will be of short height, but will be very beautiful, will be pale, have large breasts for women, have a round face, dark eyes and hair. Now moon, if your moon is Darakaraka, if your moon becomes the Darakaraka, then this will give an emotional and sensitive spouse who will have extreme mood swings or frequent mood swings. Okay. And the spouse will be flexible, would be surrendering by nature, but it could also indicate a spouse with motherly qualities. For example, if you have moon in the Daraka as Darakaraka and that moon is placed in Cancer, then the spouse will end up having motherly qualities. Okay. And usually, the spouse would be adaptable to situations where there is a high need for deeper connection. They would want a deeper connection with you. They would be intuitive, they would be nurturing, very, very nurturing. Okay. And would be lucky because if you have moon as the Darakaraka and the moon has benefic influences, then you'd be offered great nourishment from your spouse, physical nourishment as well as nourishment by food. And as I said, there could be some motherly energy associated with the spouse, and the spouse will also be sensual as well as sexual by nature. Okay. If Mercury becomes your Darakaraka, in that case, friendship, exploration, and activities would be important for the spouse. Okay, it's a good planet to have as a Darakaraka because, for any marriage to survive, friendship is very, very important. Friendship has to become an important part of the relationship. Okay, the spouse will be talkative and will be fond of leisure travel, and it can indicate a spouse who is younger in age, more than 7 to 8 years. Okay, and the spouse will have a lovely way of communicating, will have a friendly appearance, would be curious, but would also be careless. Okay. By curious, I mean the spouse would love to know a lot of things, but would be also very skilled. Okay. So if you want to know how your spouse would appear, then, the spouse will have a youthful appearance, having a medium height, light hair and eye color, and with a strong possibility of having strong cheekbones. Okay. If Venus becomes your Darakaraka, in that case, the spouse could have strong Libra placements in the birth chart as well as prominent Libra qualities to their personality. Okay, that means the spouse would harbor a love for comfort and luxury as well. Okay, and as well as a need to keep or to maintain harmony and peace in the relationship. Okay, so you are bound to have a spouse who is romantic by nature, perhaps a bit submissive as well, sensual, emotional, as well as having strong sexual desires and strong sexual tendencies. Okay, so people having Venus Darakaraka, I have seen them have very attractive, very beautiful, average or medium height spouses with a bit of curves and chubs. Okay, and if it's a male having this placement, then the wife can have larger breasts than average, and if it's a female having this placement, then the husband can have a very feminine appearance. Okay, other common features would be dark eyes and hair, tinted skin tone, exotic round face, very expressive and well-defined eyes. And usually, if you're a male having this placement, then your wife should have a usually small forehead. Okay. What if Mars becomes the Darakaraka? In that case, it will give the spouse, a very strong will with a very strong drive. Okay. The spouse will be protective and will have a problem-solving approach to life. The spouse will be very active on a regular basis, such as doing sports. The spouse would be courageous, dominating at times or most of the times because it's Mars. The spouse will be goal-oriented and sometimes a bit quarrelsome. Okay. If you come to the physical attributes, then the spouse would have a very lean and athletic figure, smaller than average height, wide shoulders. If it's a male, then your wife will have small breasts, bright eye and hair color as well as tinted skin tone. Okay. What if Jupiter becomes the Darakaraka? In that case, you are bound to get a spouse with good or high education. Okay. And the spouse is bound to have a lot of spiritual qualities as well as an overprotective nature. Okay. And after marriage, the spouse is also going to bring a lot of wisdom, a lot of joy and jolly to your life. Okay. Because remember, Jupiter rules your jovial nature. Okay. And the spouse will love humor and creativity, would be fond of traveling, would be very fond of other cultures, would be loyal, optimistic, wise, religious, or spiritual. Okay. Uh, Physical appearance wise, if it's happening for a female, the spouse would be chubby, medium tall height, endomorphic build, light eye color, pinkish or golden hue skin tone, possibility of being foreign, but this is not always the case, and also having a big forehead. Okay. Now, if Darakaraka is Saturn, right, then you can expect your spouse to be older than you. Okay. It happens in most of the cases, but it might not happen as well if Saturn is placed in, if Saturn is placed in a feminine sign. Okay. But usually when the spouse becomes older, then the spouse is usually 5 to 7 years older. Okay. And the spouse would be duty oriented, sober, and rather serious. Okay. Firm in decision making, having antisocial tendencies, not so easily adaptable. Okay. Now, if you have Saturn as Darakaraka, then your marriage can have a great longevity, because then the spouse would be determined to work through times of hardship with you. Okay, the spouse would be more practical than romantic, and you'll see that your spouse will have strong Capricorn or Aquarian tendencies or placements in their birth chart. Okay, physical appearance wise, the spouse would have a strong bony structure, strong cheekbones or sunken cheeks, thick eyebrows, would be tall and thin, having dark eyes and hair color, thin hair, beard. And if this placement is for a male, then the lady or the wife would have small breasts. Okay. What if Rahu becomes the Darakaraka? In most cases, I have seen Rahu give a spouse who is a foreigner. Okay. Or, in one case, I saw where Rahu became the Darakaraka, the spouse was actually an Indian who has been settled in a foreign land for quite some time. Okay. Also, Rahu can make your spouse prone to getting cheated. Okay. For example, your spouse may be fond of making investments, and all of a sudden the investments, may go haywire, or, all of a sudden you realize that your spouse has put your hard-earned money in an investment that actually wasn't there. That was actually a scam. Okay. So if you're having Rahu as, as your Darakaraka, it's very important to keep a track of the movements of your spouse, because as I said, the spouse would be very prone to getting cheated. And in some cases, if Rahu is aspected by another malefic like Saturn or Mars, then the spouse would also be prone to cheating in the relationship. Okay. Rahu Darakaraka will give a romantic spouse usually if Rahu associates with a planet like Venus. And if it associates with a planet like Jupiter, then the spouse can be very, very religious oriented. Okay, can be fond of religious ceremonies, can be fond of going to temples, can be fond of going to pilgrimages, and so on. Okay, coming to the physical features, the spouse will be lean and thin, not so tall, medium height, prominent eyes, and a prominent voice as well. Okay, so this is all about the Darakaraka, and in the next video we will be looking at the significance of the Darakaraka when it is placed in various houses of the birth chart. Okay, so that's all from me in this video. I hope you got some information regarding this important as well as very intriguing topic on the Darakaraka. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not done that already, and if you require a consultation or a reading, kindly contact me at the number that is given in the description box. That's all from me in this video. I'll see you soon with part 2 of this video. Namaste. Om Gurave Namaha.